The roar of applause shook the auditorium as names echoed across the stage. Students beamed, families screamed with pride, cameras flashing like fireworks. I held my diploma tight, the paper trembling in my hands as I turned toward the crowd. Everyone had someone there. Everyone. Except me. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us, what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. The 2 seats my parents had reserved were empty, untouched, like they had never even considered coming. My heart dropped to the pit of my stomach. For weeks, I'd pictured them smiling, maybe even tearing up when they saw their daughter finally graduate. Instead, silence. Hours earlier, my mother's words had stung sharper than any blade. "Claire, graduation's not that big of a deal. Your brother's promotion is more important." That's real success. Real success. And just like that, they were on a plane to Vegas, celebrating Nathan in a luxury suite while I crossed the stage alone. I forced a smile for the cameras, though my chest felt like it was caving in. That night, when my classmates filled social media with proud family selfies, my feed lit up with pictures of my brother in a neon-lit Vegas penthouse. Champagne towers, gold confetti raining down, my parents grinning ear to ear in designer outfits. The caption made my throat burn. "So proud of our golden boy Nathan. This is what achievement looks like." My diploma sat on the counter, still in its cheap black folder, invisible next to their glossy photos. I locked myself in the bathroom and slid down to the floor, the glow of my phone burning into my skin. I wanted to scream, wanted to ask why wasn't I enough, but all that came out were quiet sobs. The door creaked open. Eric knelt beside me, his hand gentle on my shoulder. "Claire," he whispered, his voice steady but sharp with anger. "You walked that stage. You earned every bit of this. Don't let them make you feel small." I shook my head, tears blurring my sight. "They didn't care. They'll never care." Eric tilted my chin up. His eyes burned with something fierce, something I didn't understand yet. "They'll care soon enough, because the day will come when they'll need you." I didn't know how right he was, until a week later, when my father's desperate voice broke through the line, shattering the silence of our kitchen. The call came on a Wednesday evening, just as I was setting dinner on the table. The smell of roasted chicken and herbs filled the kitchen, the clink of plates against the wood almost drowning out the sharp vibration of my phone. I glanced at the screen. Dad. For a moment, I froze. My father never called unless it was about Nathan, unless there was some comparison to remind me of how I'd fallen short. My first instinct was to let it ring, but Eric reached across the table, picked it up, and pressed it into my palm. "Answer it," he said, his voice calm but firm. "This isn't the time to hide." I hesitated, then pressed the green button. "Hello?" On the other end, my father's voice was low and ragged, nothing like the confident man who dismissed my graduation just days ago. "Claire." His breath hitched. "We're in trouble." The words caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" He cleared his throat, but his tone cracked like glass under pressure. "The mortgage. We fell behind. The bank's threatening foreclosure. I need help." For a second, I couldn't even breathe. My parents, who had flown to Vegas for Nathan's party, who had called my graduation worthless, were calling me now, begging. I bit my lips so hard it almost bled. "And what exactly do you expect me to do?" My voice shook, half with anger, half with disbelief. "Claire, you have a good job. You're stable. We thought maybe you could lend us..." "Stable?" I cut him off, my voice rising despite myself. "You skipped my graduation to party in Vegas, Dad. You didn't even clap for me when I walked that stage. But now I'm supposed to save you?" The silence on the line was deafening. For the first time in my life, Richard Carter had no comeback. No lecture. Just silence. Then Eric stepped closer, his hand brushing mine. He nodded, silently asking for the phone. I gave it to him, my heart hammering in my chest. Eric pressed it to his ear. His tone was calm, but it carried a steel edge I'd never heard before. "Richard, listen carefully," he said. "You don't need to call Claire for help with the mortgage." My father's voice came through, shaky, desperate. "Eric, please. We're losing the house. If you two don't step in, we'll have nowhere to go." Eric's lips curved into something sharp, almost cruel, though his voice stayed level. "Then I suggest you call the new owner." There was a pause. Confusion laced my father's tone. What are you talking about?" Eric leaned back against the counter, his eyes locked on mine. He took his time, savoring every word before delivering the blow. "Her name's on the deed. You're speaking to the daughter you dismissed. Claire owns that house now." I covered my mouth, stunned. My knees nearly gave out. I had no idea Eric had gone through with it already. We'd talked about investing, about the possibility of buying the property my parents were mishandling. But I didn't know he had finalized it. On the other end, my father's voice cracked like thunder before a storm. "No, that's impossible. The Carter house has been ours for generations." Eric's gaze hardened. "Not anymore. Maybe you should have thought about generations when you told your daughter her graduation was meaningless." The line went dead silent. I could almost picture my father standing in the living room, his face drained of color, my mother's gasp echoing in the background. For once, they weren't holding champagne flutes or snapping pictures of Nathan. They were standing in a house that no longer belonged to them. I stared at Eric, my pulse racing. You bought it? Without telling me?" His expression softened as he reached for my hand. "Claire, I couldn't stand by and let them keep treating you like nothing. You earned your degree. You've worked harder than anyone I know. They needed to understand that the girl they dismissed is the woman who now holds their future." Tears blurred my vision, but these weren't the same tears I'd cried in that bathroom after graduation. These were different. They were fierce, empowering. For the first time, I realized something. This wasn't revenge. This was justice. I took the phone back from Eric, hit redial, and when my father answered, his voice broken, I finally spoke the words I had swallowed for years. "Dad, you told me my graduation meant nothing. You told me Nathan's success was all that mattered. But now, you're living under my roof. And if you want to keep it, you'll have to start respecting me." There was no response. Just the hollow sound of a man realizing his empire had crumbled at the hands of the daughter he'd overlooked. Eric squeezed my shoulder, whispering, "They wanted to define success. Now they get to live inside yours." I hung up, my heart pounding, knowing this was only the beginning. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of pounding on our apartment door. At first, I thought it was a neighbor, but when Eric opened it, my mother's voice tore through the hallway. "Claire, open this door right now." I froze halfway down the stairs, clutching the railing. There she was, Linda Carter, hair still perfectly styled, designer purse hanging off her arm, though her face was pale and desperate. Behind her, my father stood rigid, his jaw tight, eyes bloodshot like he hadn't slept. Eric didn't flinch. "This isn't your house anymore. You don't get to make demands here." My mother's eyes flicked to him, then back to me as I stepped forward. "Claire, please," she said, her voice trembling in a way I had never heard. We didn't know. We thought you were fine. We just wanted to be there for Nathan's big moment." I cut her off sharply. "My big moment was last week, Mom. I walked across that stage and you didn't even bother to show up." Her mouth opened and closed like she had no script to follow, no perfect excuse to hand me. My father finally spoke, his voice strained but still carrying that commanding edge. "Claire, whatever issues we've had, this isn't about that. This is about family. If you let the bank take that house, we'll have nothing." I stepped closer, my chest heaving, the anger I'd buried for years boiling over. "No, Dad, this is about that. All my life, it's been Nathan this, Nathan that. He was the golden boy, the chosen one. You never looked at me unless it was to compare me to him. And now, suddenly, when you're drowning, I'm supposed to save you?" Eric's hand rested lightly on my back, steadying me. "Claire," he whispered, "say what you need to say." I squared my shoulders and locked eyes with my father. You're standing on the porch of the daughter you said was nothing. And the only reason you're here is because my name is on the deed. Not Nathan's, mine. The words landed like a hammer. My father's face flushed crimson, his hands curling into fists at his sides. You don't understand how this looks, Claire. People will find out. They'll know the house isn't ours anymore. What will they think? I laughed bitterly. So that's what you're worried about? Appearances? Not the fact that you've treated me like an outsider in my own family for years. My mother finally broke down, her mascara smudging as tears spilled over. Claire, please. We can't lose the house. Your brother's been trying, but he doesn't have the means. You're the only one who can help us. That word, help, echoed in my ears. Help? When had they ever helped me? When I stayed up nights studying while they flew out to cheer Nathan's basketball games? When I paid my own way through school because Nathan needed more support? When I walked across that stage alone while they were posting party pictures in Vegas? No, I said flatly. You didn't need me then. You don't get to need me now. My father's eyes widened, his voice rising. You can't do this, Claire. We're your parents! Eric's voice sliced through the air, calm but merciless. You're right. You're her parents. But you forgot to treat her like your daughter. That's why we're here now. The silence that followed was suffocating. My mother sobbed quietly into her hands. My father stared at me, like if he glared hard enough I would back down. But I didn't. For the first time, I felt taller than him, stronger than the man who once made me feel so small. I stepped back toward the door. You should go, I said, my voice steady. Before the neighbors see you begging on my porch. My father's face twitched, pride warring with desperation. Finally, he grabbed my mother's arm and muttered, Come on. They turned and walked down the steps, their figures shrinking under the morning sun. Eric closed the door softly, then turned to me. His expression wasn't smug or triumphant, it was proud. You handled that better than I ever could have, but my chest still ached. I don't feel better, I feel guilty, angry, all of it mixed together. He cupped my face in his hands. That's normal. They raised you to believe their approval defined your worth, but today you showed them it doesn't. I leaned into him, my breath shaking. Do you think they'll come back? Eric's jaw tightened. Of course they will. Desperate people always come back. But next time, Claire, you'll be ready. I didn't know what scared me more, that he was right, or that deep down. Part of me wanted them to come back, just so I could remind them again of the truth they spent years denying. This wasn't the end. It was only the start of a reckoning they never saw coming. A week passed, but the tension never left me. Every ring of the phone, every knock on the door made my stomach tighten. I told myself I was done with them, that the confrontation on my porch was the closure I needed. But deep down, I knew my parents weren't finished, and I was right. Late Friday evening, just as Eric and I sat down for dinner, my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a call. It was a message from Nathan. Claire, Mom, and Dad are losing it. They need to meet with you. Tonight. I stared at the text, heat rising in my chest. Nathan, the golden boy, the one they'd always chosen over me, was suddenly the messenger. Eric leaned over, reading the message with a sharp exhale. Of course, he muttered. When their empire crumbles, they send their favorite son to smooth it over. I didn't reply, but an hour later, headlights swept across our driveway. My parents stepped out of Nathan's sleek car, looking smaller than I'd ever seen them. Their designer clothes didn't hide the desperation in their eyes. I opened the door before they could knock. What do you want now? My mother's voice shook as she stepped forward. Claire, please let us explain. We made mistakes. Mistakes? I snapped, cutting her off. You made a lifetime of choices. You skipped my graduation to party in Vegas. You told me my brother's promotion mattered more than my degree. You humiliated me every chance you got. And now suddenly I'm supposed to save you? My father's tone hardened, though I could hear the crack beneath it. We're still your parents. Family forgives. I laughed, bitter and sharp. Family forgives when family cares. Tell me, Dad, when did you ever care about me? When did you ever once look at me without comparing me to Nathan? Nathan shifted uncomfortably beside them, his usual smugness gone. For the first time, he looked at me with something close to regret. Claire, they're scared. The bank's closing in. Without your help. Eric stepped into the doorway, his arm brushing mine. Nathan, you're missing the point. They're not scared of the bank. They're scared of the truth. For once, they don't hold the power. Claire does. My father's jaw clenched. Fine, you want honesty? Nathan was always the one we believed in because he seemed like the safe bet. He stopped himself, but the damage was done. My heart pounded as the years of silence, dismissal, and pain flashed before me. Because I didn't fit your picture of success? Because I wasn't the trophy child you could parade around? Guess what, Dad? You bet on the wrong child. The air went heavy. My mother reached out, her voice breaking. Claire, if we lose the house, we lose everything. Please, please don't let that happen. I stepped closer, my voice low but steady. You already lost everything the moment you made me feel like nothing. That house? It's mine now. And I get to decide what happens to it. My father's face drained of color. You wouldn't throw your own family out. I met his eyes unblinking. You already did. Every time you chose Nathan over me, you pushed me out of this family. All I'm doing now is reminding you what that feels like. Behind me, Eric whispered, Claire, you don't owe them anything. And he was right. For the first time in my life, I felt free of their approval. Their begging, their excuses, their manipulations. It no longer had a hold on me. I straightened my shoulders. Here's the deal. You want to stay in that house? Then you treat me like a daughter, not a backup plan. No more dismissing me, no more comparing me. If you can't do that, you'll find out just how fast new owners can change the locks. My father's pride battled with his desperation. His lips trembled, but he finally nodded. My mother sobbed quietly, clutching his arm as if agreeing was the only way to survive. Nathan looked at me, shame clouding his eyes. For once, he didn't say a word. I stepped back, my voice calm now. You taught me that success meant titles, parties, and appearances. But tonight, you learned what real success looks like. It's standing here, owning what you tried to take from me. And I won't ever let you forget it. Eric closed the door slowly, leaving them standing on the porch, shadows under the porch light. I leaned against him, my chest heavy but alive with something I hadn't felt in years. Power. He kissed my forehead and whispered, You finally took back what was always yours. And as their footsteps faded into the night, I realized he was right. For the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing their approval. They were chasing mine.